Hi there, it's Julian from The Secret to That Takeaway Curry Taste. It's Wednesday and I've got another tasty recipe for you. The story behind this recipe, very quickly, is when I was in Cabinet in Manchester, one of my favourite restaurants of all, I'd always noticed that their rice is really tasty. And I'd said to Riz, who works there, I said, how is it you get your rice so tasty? There's just something about it, and there's no spices in it or anything like that. And he explained to me it's by the use of onions. And so he called the chef out, and the chef explained to me how they use onions in their rice, which you don't even detect once you've got the finished product, but it helps create a delicious tasting rice. So here's what we're going to need for our recipe. You're going to need some good quality basmati rice. Now, normally, in the past, I've said it doesn't really matter what brand of basmati rice you use, they're pretty much all the same. However, I've been getting some fantastic results with this brand, and I'm not promoting it in that I've no affiliation to it, I'm not making any money from it, but this Amira brand of basmati is really good. I've got fantastic results with it, and if you want to ensure good results and you don't want your rice going all soggy and rice like rice pudding, I really do recommend using this brand, Amira. So what we've got soaking in our bowl here is 1 mug of the Amira basmati rice, and that's just a regular mug that we're using here, and that's been soaking for about an hour. And if you're using the other style of basmati rice cooking, which I recommend in my ebooks by means of a pressure cooker, you don't need to soak it. But if you're going to cook it in a pan, I would recommend you soak it for at least an hour. So we've got that. Okay, we've got 2 medium onions, finely sliced. And I don't know if you can see that, but they really are very finely sliced, and this is the key to getting the right result with this recipe. You don't really want to be detecting the onions in your rice, so we're going to cook them until they go very brown, and basically will disappear into the rice, and they'll create a wonderful flavour, believe me. And then over here we've got just a tablespoon of brown demerara sugar, and we add this into the onions to help caramelize them. So that's those ingredients. And we've got 3 tablespoonfuls of extra virgin olive oil. Now, I've had a few comments just by way of questions about the use of olive oil. In the restaurant style cooking, I haven't recommended it in the past, and it's true that olive oil does have a strong taste, and when you add it to certain dishes it could taint the taste slightly. But I found, to be quite honest with you, in trying to sort of eat a little bit more healthily and using extra virgin olive oil as opposed to just regular sunflower oil, you don't really detect the flavour. Okay, we've got our oil heating in the pan. That's hot enough now. Again, if you're cooking with extra virgin olive oil, don't heat it up too much. It will smoke, it will destroy the oil. It won't taste very nice either. So that's nice and hot. So we're going to put in our onions. And we're not adding the sugar in yet, because what we want to do is we want to get these onions browned, and this is going to take a little while. So make sure all your onion bits are nice and separate, and if they're cut really fine, they'll cook in no time at all. So what we'll do is we'll leave them cooking. They'll take a few minutes, probably 5 or 6 minutes. We'll come back and show you what they look like before we put in the sugar. Okay, about 5 minutes later, just take a look inside the pot. You can see that our onions are caramelizing quite well, but they're still not where we want them to be. So now we're going to speed up the process by adding in our sugar, and this is really going to help these onions caramelize and get to where we want them before we add our rice. So we'll leave them another 4 or 5 minutes. We'll come back and see what they look like. A few minutes later, just take a look at the pot and see how brown these onions are. You're probably thinking they look a little bit too brown. No, that's exactly what you want. You want them really brown and sticky like that. And now what we do is we add in our rice. This is the soaked rice that we had soaking. It's been drained. Make sure it's well drained. Make sure it's not wet when you put it in. So this is 1 mugful of rice. Now, What you want to do is be very, very careful. Don't thrash it around because we've soaked this rice, it'll be quite delicate and we'll end up with loads of broken grains of basmati rice, and we don't want that because we want it to look as well as taste good. So just gently turn it around in the onion mixture till all the rice is well mixed. And what we're going to do is we're just going to gently fry this on a medium heat. We're on about number 4 here, so it's not high at all, until all the grains have got nice and white. This is going to take about 3 or 4 minutes, so we'll come back once that process is done, show you what it looks like. Okay, so a few minutes later, just take a look at the rice now. Can you see that the onions, the caramelized onions, have turned the rice almost brown? And that's when you know that it's fried enough, the rice that is, with the onions. So that's just perfect where we want it to be. Now we're going to add our water. Now the way we're going to do it with the water is we're adding 2 mugs of water to 1 mug of rice, and that's the way you want to do it. Some people, they add like a ton of water in with their rice as a foolproof method, but we want the absorption method here because we don't want the water to dilute the flavour that we've got from the onions. So we just want two mugs of water to 1 mug of rice. So here's our water. And we're going to add in a teaspoon of salt. So just give that a stir, just make sure all the rice is not clumped together a couple of times. Don't have to worry about it or anything, and that's fine. And we're going to get that up to a heat, and we're going to put our lid on, but we're going to leave the lid like that. We're not going to completely cover it, we're just going to have it mostly covered with a little bit of a gap. So we'll come back once that's boiling. We don't want to boil it too much, we want to get it just to boiling and then take it down. I'll show you what I mean when we come back in a couple of minutes. Alright, so it just took a few minutes for our rice to get to the boil. Have a look. You can see it's just boiling, but now we don't want to leave it that way, so we're going to take it right down. We're going to take it down to about 3. And if you're using electric like me, it can take a little while to come down. It's not as quick as gas. So we've took that down to 3. We're going to put the lid back to where it was, and we're going to leave that now. It's going to take about 10 minutes, but this will all depend really on your cooker as well. So you've got to be careful with the exact timings because it might not be the same for everybody. What I would suggest is don't leave your rice. This is one of those dishes where you don't want to just go off and do something else, because you'll come back, you'll find that it's done or it's overdone and you've ruined it and all that work for nothing. So stay with the rice. What you want to do is you want to wait until all your rice looks like it's absorbed nearly all the water. And then in the final stage we will take it down to the lowest setting, which is 1. We'll put the lid on completely and we'll let it cook just for a few more minutes, probably about 5, in its own steam. We'll take the lid off, we'll separate the grains, and we will have perfect rice, trust me. For us it's been about 8 minutes, but as I said, go off your rice. You want it to look something like this. As you can see, the majority of the water, if you look very closely in there, has been absorbed. You can just see a little bit of bubbling just below the surface. That tells us there's a little bit to go yet, but you can see the little holes appearing in the rice. That tells you it's nearly done, and you can see the onions lay on top there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our heat down to 1, the lowest that it will go, and we're going to put our lid fully on like that, and we're going to leave that now for at least 5 minutes. You want at least 5 minutes, it might take a little bit longer. We'll come back in 5 minutes, we'll give it a turn with the fork and we'll test it and fluff it up. Okay, we'll come back to it now. So we're going to take the lid off and we're just going to check that there's no water at the bottom of the pan, which there isn't. So all the rice has absorbed all the water, which is great. That looks fantastic, and you can see all the grains are nice and separate. So we're just going to taste it just to make sure it's not al dente. No, that's perfect, that. If it does taste a little bit al dente, don't worry about it, just put the lid back on, leave it on 1 and just leave it for another few minutes. The thing with rice, it'll all depend on the pan you're using and obviously the stove and the brand of rice. There's so many different variables, it's very hard to give an exact science, but this method will get you there. So we'll just serve that up. Okay, so there's our lovely Pakistani style onion rice. And when you go to Cabernet in Manchester, that's exactly as you get it. You just get a plate of rice like that, and as I said, you get your bowl of curry separate. And I'm not joking, this rice is so tasty, you can just eat it on its own. It's that delicious. I can honestly tell you, this is the tastiest rice I've ever had anywhere, better than any pilau rice or any other type of rice that I've ever had. It's just so tasty. The onions, the caramelized onions, really do give it flavour. I'll just taste it for you because I know you're dying to see me taste it. It's great. It really, really is great. And with a nice veggie curry, you've got a fantastic meal there. The good thing about it is because you've got the sugar caramelizing with the onions there, you've got a slight background of sweetness, which just really lends itself to a delicious, tasty rice. So make this and enjoy. One more bite before I go. That rice is so good, you've got to make it. It's so good, honestly, you can eat it on its own. And I often do. Sometimes I just fancy some rice and I'll just eat that rice on its own. It really is that good. So have a go, make that rice. And if you like this recipe, as always, please give me a thumbs up. And if you've got any comments, leave them in the comments below. I'll always try my best to get back to you. So thanks for watching. See you next Wednesday.